everybody. Welcome to Randy Sands and the Mediumship crew. And we have the whole crew here. Jack, you gonna say hi to the good people?
Hi, good people.
And we've got the whole crew. Hey, everybody. And tonight we're going to talk about do's and don'ts of mediumship on both parts, on the sitter's part and on the medium's part. And I'm going to run through a list that's my personal feelings. That doesn't mean that it's etched in stone. And once I get through the list, then we'll open it up and we'll hear from everybody. I mean, we've got several mediums in here. So we'll hear from everybody, their thoughts and their perspectives, because there's no right and there's no wrong. You know? So when it comes to people coming for readings, I call them sitters. I like to ask them to come with an open mind. We all get the skeptics, and those end up being our best fans, because once they get information that there's no way we know, then they're believers. But please come with an open mind. I understand a healthy skeptic, and I can appreciate that. I ask my people to please come free of drugs and alcohol. And I also ask them to prepare a list of questions they really want to ask ahead of time, because invariably they'll get here and they'll get involved in the reading and they'll forget all their questions will go out the door. So that's what I ask them to do. What I ask them not to do. The minute you get some evidence, please don't start blurting out a lot of information, because you're feeding the medium. And that is the difference between us doing our job or us having a conversation. And you came to me, I imagine, because you want me to do my job. And that's what I'd like to do also. Also, I ask that somebody does not come within right away after somebody crosses. I ask them to give it 4 to 6 months. And I'm sure we'll be discussing this, so we'll get into why. If a spirit comes in that you don't want to hear from, and I know that there can be trauma or hurt or what have you from the past, please don't get upset and angry. Tell us gently, because you don't want to pull us out of our groove, so to speak. Do not become reading dependent. I don't like to see anybody more than once a quarter. Typically, there are some exceptions, but typically. And psychic amnesia, it's a real thing. So when a medium says something and you don't understand it, please don't bash that medium, because I can't tell you how many times people have contacted me later or come running up to me after a platform, show and said, oh my gosh, I mean, it happened to me. I had somebody calling out Ed, and I said, no Ed. And I'm sitting in meditation 3 weeks later, and my Uncle Ed's like, what, you didn't want to claim me? I mean, it was my uncle. It happens. It's a real thing. So for mediums, I feel that all mediums should explain how they work before they get started, so that the sitter knows what to expect, especially if they've not had a reading before. And I think that it would be ethical, and again, this is my opinion, I think it would be ethical if we had a 10-minute refund policy, where if for whatever reason we're not connecting, within 10 minutes that we refund their money. And I think that we also should be very careful of how many questions we're asking. As a medium, we shouldn't really be asking questions. The information is always right. Sometimes how we interpret it isn't right. So every now and then to say, do you understand, if you're not sure that you're interpreting it correctly, I think is okay. But we shouldn't be asking a bunch of questions. in my mind. So I'm going to open up the floor for discussion. We've got a bunch of topics out there. People can add more, people can ask questions or put in their thoughts and feelings. Somebody want to go first?
When y'all know you have something to say.
SSK, I know you do. And Tammy, I know you do.
Colleen does too. Colleen always has something.
I always have something, absolutely. One thing I like to add is that there's these times that mediums forget that they can be wrong, and that they take it so deeply personal that they're wrong, but that's okay. We have to get away from being afraid of being wrong and just be giving what we get and trusting that that's what the person needs to hear. I can't tell you the number of times that I've said something absolutely bizarre coming out of my mouth going, I don't get it. And it's the most healing, cleansing, or it's the greatest confirmation for that person. And so we forget that we have to be willing to be wrong and silly and free with giving our messages.
Mm-hmm. Trust spirit.
Always.
Anyone else? SSK?
I don't know where to start. What topic do you want to pick?
You pick.
I think I'm probably the most passionate about mediumship dependency, because I think that there's just too many people being taken advantage of. So, you know, I think that it's important that once you connect to your loved one, or once you receive information that proves to you that your loved one is still in existence on some plane or dimension or whatever your belief is, that connection then should hopefully inspire you to, you know, either start trusting yourself, because we always know that spirit is sending us signs that they're around. So, you know, look for ways to learn how to do it and don't depend on a medium. I've seen that too much. I do have to say, I'm going to digress for 1 second, because you called it psychic amnesia.
Well, that's just a term.
But like mediumship, yeah, like know your dead people, right? Like you don't know who you affect too. That's the other thing. Like if you go into a reading very narrow-minded, in the essence of I only want to talk to, I only want to talk to Grandpa Chuck, but yet, you know, you have a huge family on the spirit side of life, you know, and you're only focused on that one, that might, you know, not necessarily be a good reading for you call him a sitter?
Yeah, I call him that.
Yeah.
What do you call him?
I like that, actually. I guess for going from a church, I call it a congregant normally, or then a client secondly, only because I'm used to doing, you know, church readings more than, but I
call them a sitter because they're sitting with me.
I think it's perfect. I like it.
So when we were talking, you had a question why I didn't like someone to come immediately after crossing. And we talked about it. You want to elaborate?
I didn't mean like if somebody came to me like right after. What happens to me usually is at funerals and things like that, I get messages that need to be given to them right there.
Oh, that I agree. I was talking about a sitter.
Oh.
Coming to me.
No, I don't have a problem with that.
So why shouldn't we have them come to us right away? What could be the issues?
Well, I think it depends. It depends.
Go ahead, elaborate.
Well, I think that, like, if, for example, I have given readings to people who their loved one, well, honestly, the closest, I was at a gallery and I gave this woman a reading, and from a friend, and she goes, I don't think she passed yet. And then she got a text. Like, so literally, like, I gave her the reading and then moments later the text came through, you know. So spirit, just to elaborate on that, spirit doesn't get stuck or in transit or stuck in a hospital and can't communicate for so many months. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the sitter, like the person coming for the reading. And I think it's going to depend on the grief process of that person. You know, like if you have, like when grandma who dies at 101, you know, like if my sitter comes in, oh, my grandma just died 3 weeks ago, you know, but what we consider a full life, I wouldn't say I'm not going to read you. You know, but if somebody just lost a son, a partner, a daughter, you know, someone close in a tragic situation where they haven't even started to deal with their grief, I wouldn't read them. I wouldn't read them until maybe even longer than, you know, it depends on where they are in the grief cycle. And I think it also depends on who passed to spirit. Let me ask you, I'm intrigued. I know we're talking mediumship, but you, the fantastic animal communicator, what about pets? Do you put a limit on that? Like, because people can grieve their pets just as much as they grieve a loved one.
Before I answer that, Sebastian, I saw your hand, honey, go up, and I'll get right to you. Give me a second. You know, it depends. And I'm going to be quite honest with you. If they call me and they can't talk to me because they're sobbing uncontrollably, I'm going to tell them it's too soon. If they can have a conversation with me and they're like, listen, I just need to know that they're okay. I just need to know that I did the right thing. You know, did I do it too soon or too late? But we can converse. Then I'm okay with it.
Don't you think spirit will only give you the information that that person's ready to hear?
You know, that's a good point. For me, I'm just not necessarily willing to take that chance because we are meant to heal, in my opinion, not to do harm. And I don't want to risk that. So for me, it's a responsibility factor. And I'm not saying that my position is right. And everybody has to do what they feel is right.
That's what I think. I think just whatever you feel at the moment, whether it would be right or not, I think spirit's going to guide you. You know, if I'm not supposed to give a reading, I can guarantee spirit's going to say, nope, sorry, not doing it.
And I think you have a valid point, because like I just said, if I could carry on a conversation with somebody and they're fine, then I may change that. I've done that before, you know, where I've not gone the 4 to 6 months, but that's like my general guideline. It's not like something etched in stone. Sebastian, I saw your hand up, honey. You're on mute.
Well, I was going to say, I think that your waiting time, giving the people that time to grieve, I think that helps a lot prevent your reading dependencies, you know, because they've been able to internally handle it before coming. And, you know, if they come in their grief and they hear something, then they're stuck on that. And they want more and more and more to help them overcome their personal internal issues, you know. It helps them look outside of themselves where they should be, I think anyway. And so I think that's a good measure to try and prevent that reading dependency you brought up.
And I agree, but reading dependency can also be in multiple different areas. People, divorce, child custody. I mean, I've seen it all across the board. And coming every week is not going, nothing is going to change that significantly. Right. And at that point, in my opinion, and strictly my opinion, you're being taken advantage of, because in my opinion, that's somebody taking your money, doing all these readings, and for what? Right. It's creating dependency.
Right.
And we've all heard about different people in the past that did that. And you know what? Now a lot of them go to jail. And
right.
You know, there may be
Rightfully
something,
so.
I was about to say, there may be something to that.
People. Right.
So what else?
So I really think that waiting list helps a lot, you know, to just one of those things that help naturally dissuade the dependency aspect. I think that's a great rule.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Like I said, it's not something that I don't break from time to time, but it's my basic guideline. What do you guys think about when people come to us for a reading and the first bit of evidence we give them, your grandfather had a farm. Oh my goodness, yes. And he had these tractors that he worked on, and there were these animals and this and that and this and da da da, and grandma this, and you can't even get a word in. What do you guys think of that? Everybody's
Usually,
laughing.
I'm going to come through with the
I
information
always
first.
ask.
What's that, Tammy?
I tell them that I'm going to come through with the information that I get first, and then for them to wait to respond till after. Because
I agree.
You're in a flow of something, and you're just going, you know, one right after the next, and you're in this flow. And if they keep stopping you, then they keep interrupting that flow. And I think that it really cuts down on the information that they're going to receive.
And it's feeding the medium. It's feeding
And
the
I
medium.
think it also has a lot to do with the fact of how you set up how you work at the beginning. You can stop that if you do it at the beginning and say, I'm going to give you information. I don't want you to feed on it. I don't want you to elaborate. I expect one of three answers. Yes, I understand. No, I don't understand. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. And
that's all that should come out of your mouth when I'm giving you information.
And that's exactly what I do when I said that mediums, in my opinion, should, when you first sit down, explain how you work. Because A, if somebody hasn't had a reading before, they don't know how you work. And B, all of us work differently. So if they sat with SSK before and you work one way, and then they come to me and I don't work the way you work, their head is spinning. Wait a second, what's going on here? So I do set that up, and I do tell them, please do not interrupt me until I'm done, because you don't want to feed the medium. You can, you know, this, you know, what have you. The information is always right. If I'm not sure that I'm interpreting it correctly, I may say, do you understand? That, because I may need to go back and reevaluate that information. But yes, I do agree, Colleen, we need to set it up, because otherwise they're giving you all the information. What's left for you? It's the difference between us doing our job or them paying us to have a conversation. And in my mind, that's not appropriate. What else from the topics did anybody have to elaborate on?
Talk about becoming reading dependent.
Okay.
How many times have you had a friend, somebody that becomes your friend, and then the only time they stop over or they call is when they want some kind of information?
I mean, as mediums, we all bounce things off each other all the time. And I think that's fine. But
no, this person isn't a medium.
Yeah, when somebody's doing that, I feel that it needs to be stopped. And I don't know how anybody else handles it. We can go through each person and see how they handle it. I know for me, I say, listen, this requires energy. And it's also helping people heal is how I make my living. And there needs to be an exchange. There's got to be a flow. And I'm sure you would agree, when you go to work and you punch in, you don't expect at the end of the week that you don't get a paycheck. And for me, that's worked. What about you guys?
I have something. I'm not a medium, but I'm a massage therapist. And it,
Jump in.
but what I see is that the same thing sort of applies if somebody comes over and it's like, oh God, my shoulders, would you mind just doing,
Mhm.
5-10 minutes. And so I really just translated it right to that, because that's okay once or twice, you like your friend, you want to like fix them up. Same thing,
I haven't been over
okay,
there
well,
in a while.
what's that?
I haven't been over there in a while.
Well, you're funny.
There goes Jack making it all about her. No, I'm joking.
No. Yeah,
keep
that's funny.
going, Lynn.
Yeah. So if it happens more than once, I would say something like, you need to make an appointment, in a nice way, because they're my friend or whatever. But it's like, you can't keep getting freebies. This is what I do for a living and I'm really, really good at it. I need you to make an appointment. And you just, kind of, very nicely try to steer it back to, this is what I do for a living. And unless you're in like a relationship with someone, they probably ought to be paying for it. It's what you do for a job.
Well, and look,
Michelle and I do trade. She does dogs. I do massage. It all works out good. So
that didn't sound good.
Okay.
Michelle grooms dogs.
Yes, thank you. And I massage people.
So this is where you as a medium, you have to have boundaries. So when I set my boundaries, I don't read my friends.
Oh, okay.
So that doesn't happen. Now, it doesn't mean that I'm not with my friend Jen and her grandmother comes through that I don't blurt it out. But Jen knows that she's only going to hear something come out of me if there's something that needs to be said.
Right.
And it goes for all of my friends. Nobody ever expects it because they know the boundary. I don't read my friends.
I pretty much do the same thing. I certainly don't read family, because for me, I feel my ego has too much ability to, I want the best for them. And I feel that in reading for them and wanting the best for them, that things can get blurred. So I typically don't either. What about you guys? SSK, Tammy?
I have to agree. I think with Colleen, boundaries. I mean, it's really boundaries. I don't go anywhere and just open up. Like, I don't go randomly up to people on the street. I don't nope. Yeah, spirit knows, people know. If you want me, you make an appointment. Otherwise, I'm living my life. So I think boundaries are absolutely healthy. I agree with Colleen also, and Randy, you said too, I don't read for friends because I'm too invested. And I want what's best for them. So I struggle with that because I just think I'll argue. Like Grandpa will come in, I'm like, well, no, she doesn't need to do that. So I do though read for family once in a while. More like when we're together, more when we're together for a holiday and somebody brings up little grandma's plum cake, and then all of a sudden little grandma's just in the room, because my family and spirit kind of has I have a boundary. I have a screen door they have to knock on first, but it's not like Fort Knox or anything where you can't get in, so I'll say oh my God, little I'll say it, I'll just kind of bring grandma through for a minute, during Christmas or something. But
well, I wouldn't call that a reading though.
Right.
I would call that kind of a mediumship social with family.
Grandma's chicken in.
Kind of like normal.
Yeah, but as far as a reading, I mean, I want everything to be happy and wonderful and warm and fluffy for them. And, I find it can get in the way of doing what's right, if that makes sense. So let's see, what else? Oh, what about when somebody comes and a spirit comes in that they don't want to hear from? They had issues with their mother. They do not want to hear, and you say, "Oh, your mother comes in." I don't want it. We're not going to finish the sentence. What does that do to you guys when you're in the middle of a reading?
I explained to him that them in spirit is not the same as them when they were here on the earth, and that they have a better understanding of all the hurts and things that they've, you know, contributed to that person's life, and that they're just here, whether it be that they want to hear about it or not, but possibly to make amends. And they don't have to accept it, you know, but this is what spirit wants is, you know, they wouldn't come through if spirit didn't think that they were supposed to hear from this person.
But what does it do to you when you're in the middle of reading mode?
I really never had, you know, I've had that experience where I've had to tell the person just what I said, that they're not the same person that they were here on earth. So just try and have an open heart and listen to what they have to say. And it's up to you whether you want to accept what they say or not. But I believe that it's important, or we wouldn't be here to hear this message.
So for me, when I'm in that mode, if they get all excited and, you know, yelling and carrying on, it's like I'm going with my flow and it's all. So one of the things that I again do when I'm starting and I'm explaining how I work is I say, please, if a spirit comes in that you don't want to hear from, please understand that sometimes they feel a need to make amends. If you don't want to hear from them, that's fine. I understand. But please don't get excited and start yelling, carrying on. Please gently say, listen, I would prefer not to speak to that person because I don't want my flow to and then have to start up again. It just requires, I mean, not that it's that difficult or hard, but it requires getting that flow going again. So, and I prefer not to have that happen. What about you, Stacy? You're on mute.
There you go. You know, I'm trying to think because I've had a few situations like that, but spirit has really stepped in subtly. So like I know like, okay, so I know that this relationship isn't good. So I guess I've never really seen a sitter have like a, oh my God, no. Do you know what I mean? Like moment. Because for me, the ones that are closest to the sitter, right? The energy that's closest, the spirit that's closest to the sitter is like wanting to connect. The ones that kind of come in and are off to the side or like a lot of times I'll see them in corners of rooms, like just kind of like, you know, hanging out in the corner. And I'm just like, okay, so let's just talk about your dad for a minute. And if all of a sudden you see the sitter like go still, I'm like, okay, we're not going to talk about your dad. Like, we're not. No, we're going to go back with, you know, with your girlfriend, Elizabeth. Like, all right, you know, but, you know, maybe you know, so I don't know. Like, I would say though, that would maybe, you know, disrupt the flow. Like going back to how Colleen, you know, like, and you were explaining, I have like a 2-minute, here's how I work. And I say to them, you can't talk for the first 15 minutes. I'm just going to give you a plethora of information. Make notes, jot down notes. If you're not sure, you know, circle, whatever, and we'll go back to it. You know, and I think that if somebody got really excited like that, I think I would pull the 10-minute, you know what, I don't think this is going to work hard, and just kind of be done with it.
Yeah, except
You know
it
what
could
I mean?
be 25 minutes in.
That's true. It's that last one sneaking in right before the reading's over, right?
Yeah.
Well, I think it comes back down to our boundaries with spirit, and knowing that if somebody's going to come through for somebody that they're going to have a horrible reaction, my guides are already holding them at the gate. So I never even am aware of them. But I always set the boundary in the beginning with the client or the sitter and saying, if there's somebody you don't want to hear from, just let me know and we'll move on. And I gently just say to the spirit, I'm sorry, they don't want to speak. Maybe later.
I've had a situation, and it's only been once, where there really needed to be an amends made, and the person really needed to hear it in order to heal. And it was difficult. It was difficult. We worked our way through it, and it, from what I was told later, it was very freeing for the sitter. So it can be hard and it can be tricky. You know, when you're the middleman, it's not always a comfortable situation. It's not always comfortable. I've had situations working with animal communication where an animal was like, I really don't like the boyfriend, or I really don't like the girlfriend. And like, how do you tell this person when this is a relatively new relationship and they're all goo goo gaga for this person? They don't want to hear it. They don't, you know? So, I mean, it can be, yeah, tricky. So what do you guys think about sitters having a list of questions? I'm really big on that because I've had too many times where people have come, they forgot their questions, and then they're wanting to call me later, and I've got, you know, my days planned. So then they're wanting to book another appointment. So I've gotten to the point where when people book with me, I tell them to start compiling a list of questions, and that we'll get to their questions towards the end of the reading. What do you guys think about that?
I agree.
How do you work?
I do about the same thing.
What, Colleen?
I do the same thing. I leave like the last 15, I watch for the last 15 minutes and that's when I go, okay, your questions, what are they? And let's nail through them.
Okay, and SSK?
I agree. However, now you're touching on another subject. It depends on what kind of questions, because if they're coming to me for just a mediumship reading, there's not going to be a lot of like futuristic predictions, because the loved ones aren't going to care. They're just going to care that they're doing the best that they can do and living the best encouraging life. If they come for like a medium psychic, you know, like I try to leave, I do like questions though, like, you know, because it does help to make sure that your sitter is walking away with what they want. Because most times, honestly, most of the sitters want both. They want psychic and they want mediumistic. Like they want to hear from grandpa, but then they want to know if they're going to get that new job tomorrow. You know, and like I said, I don't know. I guess that would be an interesting topic. Like how much does spirit actually prophesize or foresee the future versus how much are we psychically tuning into?
We should do that. I know. Oh, go ahead, Colleen.
Sorry. But I also sense from a lot of sitters, they have a question about the person that has gone to the other side. And there's a question that's burning within them that they need to know the answer. Those are the kind of questions that I usually get.
And I get
not the forecasting or that.
Mm-hmm.
And I get both. And that's why I start off my readings in a mediumship mode, because it's a higher energy. And then I'll come down to psychic if need be. But I don't want to bounce back and forth. So I'll start off in the mediumship and then I'll come down. That's just my way of doing it.
Well, and I think, you know, honestly, I think it's about education. You know, a lot of like Joe Schmo, no offense to Joe Schmo. I know there's probably a Joe Schmo walking around really mad that that's his name, right? Like, but, you know, no offense to Joe Schmo, but, you know, a lot of times people don't understand the difference. because you're
Mhm.
seeing people like, you see names. I'm a psychic medium. They don't understand the difference between the psychic vibration, like Randy, like you were saying, and then the spirit vibration. So it's good probably in the beginning. Now I'm thinking about it because now I'm like, maybe I need to incorporate somewhere, in my description that I do mediumistic readings, what that means, because I don't know if a lot of people understand the difference of it.
Can I tell you, I didn't for years. Because when I first started doing workshops, the way I was taught, it was intermingled. It took me a long time to understand the difference myself. It really did. So, I think that makes a lot of sense. And psychic medium. So for those of you that don't know, every medium is a psychic. Not all psychics are mediums. And that could be another topic. So, does anybody else have anything they would like to add? How about what kind of questions should a medium ask?
Should a medium ask?
Uh-huh.
Why would a medium need to ask questions? Like, aren't you really just like waiting for that person's people to come through? If you're going to be giving a reading, like, what do you want them to ask? I mean, it's like, or what do you want to ask the person if you're just waiting for the spirit to tell you something?
Are you talking about what questions do we ask spirit?
What questions do we ask sitters?
Sitters. I sit back and I think about this because I think of all the really bad readings that I've watched where the person giving the reading is asking a leading question so that they get information that they can then use psychically to propel the reading forward. So I try and not ask those kind of questions. I ask questions like, do you understand what I've said? Great. And then I carry on. Because otherwise, if I go, I have a grandmother here and I'm sensing that she's got a living room with plastic on the furniture. Is that right? Yes. I can then build a story with that.
Yeah.
And that's not how I want to work. I want to be really working with spirit.
Yeah, we're not on a fishing expedition, We don't want to be asking a bunch of questions to lead us. That's just not the way to do it.
Exactly. And nor should you ask, do you understand that every other sentence? Go ahead, Stacy.
Yeah, every other thing. I have a grandma. Can you take that? She baked cookies. Can you take that?
She wore an apron. Do you understand that?
Do you understand that? Yeah,
she
I
had
agree.
a sewing machine and she had a jar of buttons. Do you understand that? Like from that era, that fits like everybody.
Yeah. I think I think you guys said it. The question should be, can you take that? Can you understand that? And here's the thing. If you're developing mediumship, be okay with a no. That's probably good. That's the best thing, because when they say no, the medium, like as the medium, I go back and say, okay, give me something else that didn't work. Like that, they're not understanding that, so why are you showing me, the, Sony TV tube, on channel 58, give me more, because, his favorite show is Archie Bunker. Okay. Yeah, I can take that. Like, all right. But you don't want to, and you don't want to ask it after every single thing, I mean, and the thing is here's the thing, not all the time, like back to Colleen said, sometimes we're going to be wrong. Like mediums just have to stop that. You're just, for whatever reason, your frequency is not at the frequency of, getting the information. But I think sometimes, like, I end up, again, bringing in people who surprise the sitter. Like all of a sudden I'll be like, I have this woman and, in describing her, and I'm like, gosh, she keeps talking about like third or fourth grade. Like, I feel like she's your third or fourth grade teacher. She's showing me this, and I start, and it's not grandma that they, that came in. It's their third grade teacher who, but yet could prove the continuity by all the validation that was given. And then that sitter might ask, like, why did she come in? Like, there's general questions I think that you can expect the sitter to ask if they've never had a mediumship reading before. Like, why is it that some people who we didn't really consider family come in like our family? Because we seriously don't know how many people we affect in one given day of our existence. So, I think, those are some really great general questions, or like, how does this work? Or how do I know if it's my loved one? I say, well, set up an agreement, say, I'm going to hear Johnny Cash.
And oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were done.
Oh, I am done, hon. Mm-hmm.
Oh, and yes, we have to be okay with hearing that's not right. And the reason we have to be okay with that is because that doesn't mean we're not right. Like I said, the amnesia runs deep. I had somebody calling Ed. I'm like, nope, no Ed here. 3 weeks later, my uncle in meditation is like, you didn't want me? And I'm a medium.
Well, and that brings in the flip side of this, like where mediums could get together and have a discussion a little bit, because there have been times where I have adamantly been told, no, sorry, you know what? You're not with me. Like, no, it isn't making sense to me.
And a week later or a month later,
yeah,
you get a phone call, an email. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Well, like some of the best information, like each medium, I forget 95% of my readings, right? Like when I say I leave that with you, I leave that with you and I walk away. However, I think we've all had some readings in our life that just has etched in our mind forever, right? And one of those was the fact that I was giving this woman somebody who was like, yeah, no, I haven't lost anybody from school. We're all together. Now, granted, we graduated like 20 years ago, but no. Like, just refuse to take it. And like you said, 4 weeks later, because he was so predominant, I could tell the page number. I said, he's on page 55 of your yearbook, holding a football tucked in with jersey number 72. And she shows up 3 weeks later with the yearbook, page 55, jersey number 72. Like, it was just, knock your socks off kind of stuff. And so sometimes, you're not always wrong when the sitter might think you're wrong.
Yeah, because the people that graduated, they know. It may take the sitter a minute. Yes, Colleen.
There's a difference. So sometimes if you're one-on-one, there's sometimes that they don't recognize. But then when you're doing a gallery situation or doing it in church, and I've had this happen where I know I have this person and I'm going to, let's say you, Randy, and I'm coming with the details and you're going, no. I have to stop a minute and I have to evaluate, am I at the right person? And I may go look around the room and go, does anybody else take this person? Inevitably, it'll be the person behind or the person in front of you sitting that can take the person. But if nobody can take the person, I know it's for you and that you just don't understand any of it. And I say, I'm going to give you the message and you're going to have to do a little research on this person because I have so much detail that gives you that ability. And by the time I get done with the message, they're usually bawling and it's the message that they needed to hear. They just didn't know who the person was. So you kind of have to trust spirit sometimes and push through the rejection of the no. That's why a no isn't always bad. It's just that the person doesn't understand it. Around Lilydale, we call that the Lilydale slap. You usually walk away from the stump and you remember the person that they say.
Or on the other side of the coin, you get 5 people raising their hands and you have to keep asking for more and more information to keep whittling it down to get to the 1. That's happened to me a few times.
I've had it happen where I've had it down to 3 people and the details were so specific. It was 3 spirits that blended and they all had to give the same kind of healing message.
Yep. That's what
And it worked,
happened when
and
I had, that's what happened when I had the 5. And that one's actually on tape. I had to keep going through getting more and more and more information until I narrowed it down to 1. But so let's talk about, because we only have a couple minutes before we have to jump off because we have the other thing we're doing. So let's talk about what creates a good reading. And we've got literally 3 minutes. So in my mind, we have to have evidence. We should definitely have a memory, and we should definitely have a message. And there could be more in there, but in my mind, those are 3 key elements. What do you guys think?
I think there's also a level of healing that comes from the sitting.
Well, yeah, but that's part of the reading. But I'm talking about like components of a reading. I think we definitely need to have evidence to let them know that we're with our loved one. I think we should definitely have a memory to further let them know. And I think that we should also have a message. And like I said, there could be more to it. I'm honing it down just to like bare basics there.
Those are the basics, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I always like to leave them with a little snidbit too. Like I always ask spirit to give me something to give to them to validate this message, even like further down the road. So for example, like, look for, you'll be crossing Wall Street, look for Wall Street, just to kind of like, further it down the road. Because I know when it comes to like, when we talk about physical mediumship, sometimes our monkey mind can start to, dissect things. So I feel like if you can leave them with one little tidbit to kind of look for in the future, it'll bring them back to that moment of healing, back to that moment of connection.
One of my favorites is in my mind's eye to put out my hand and ask spirit to place something in it for them. And I've gotten some crazy things. I've gotten some crazy things, but it's worked. All right. So I think we've pretty well covered tonight, and we have 9 minutes to be on Facebook Live. So I think we should say goodnight to all the good, happy people.
Good night.
Jack, you're going to say goodnight to Jack. What are you eating?
Oven.
Ice.
Say goodnight, Jack, to the good people, the good, happy people.
It's all right. Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Everybody.
Good night.